Hello.
Hey Mike, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Another day back in
Hello.
here.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, hey, how are you?
Good.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're just going to give it a moment and we're just going to let some more people join and we'll get started very shortly.
Thanks, Janice. Michael, does Piper make an appearance today?
You know what I did? Honestly, I put her out of the room because she's been like when like Amazon shows up, she goes crazy and she starts barking, so she's outside the room. So she may knock and come in. You never know. Yeah.
That's great.
Sean, good to see you. Nicole, good to see you.
Thanks, man.
We've got some
Ryan's
all-stars
on
already.
too somewhere.
Who's on?
Ryan, I thought I saw him somewhere.
Oh yeah. Coy, you got to pipe in. I've already been telling people about your Oklahoma accent, so you need to pop in and say something.
Oh, no pressure then. Thanks.
Are
Come on,
you able
Coy.
to are you able to hear me now?
Yes. Yeah.
So
So Coy and I go
yeah,
way, 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 way back. Yeah. And he's a captain in at the Rogers County Sheriff's Office in Oklahoma. So we don't get to visit as often as we would like, but I'm glad to see him on there.
yeah, and this is quite a treat for me.
Good, man. Glad you're on.
I'm going to mute myself because I'm going to eat lunch.
Okay.
What's on the menu?
Yeah. What are we having?
Yum.
So Nicole and I, she founded it and brought me on. We are co-founders of the regional peer support team, and Sean is a member of the team, and I'm sure there'll be some other ones. So we've done a lot of stuff together through the years.
Fun.
Yeah, she's a mental health
Awesome.
professional. Yep.
All-star team.
Yeah.
Okay, it looks like we have a lot of people here. Whenever you're ready, Michael or Sean, we're welcome to begin.
Great. Hi, everybody. My name is Sean Carey. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at Guide. And this afternoon, I'm pleased to introduce today's speaker, Michael Gresham. Michael's a mental fitness coach for the Guide app, and he most recently served as a wellness coordinator for the Virginia State Police. Michael draws on decades of law enforcement experience from SWAT chief to negotiator, police academy training director, and his own personal journey through incident recovery and other adventures. He brings real world resilience and mindful expertise to his first responders nationwide. Joining him is his partner and sidekick, Piper, a rescue dog who serves as his certified service and therapy dog. Together, they've supported thousands of first responders throughout the country. It's my pleasure and privilege to introduce Michael and welcome him aboard and thank him for his time today. Take it away, sir.
Thanks, Sean. I appreciate you. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
So, kind of, I'm going to go to the next slide. Anybody that's seen me do presentations, I always put this up and I mean it. Be open, ask questions. You can interrupt. This is going to be way better and way more effective if we have this as an interactive discussion. I already know there's people, like I've already mentioned, Sean and Nicole on there and Coy that have a lot of experience in this area. I know Coy's been real instrumental in putting together a peer support team there in Oklahoma. And so two options on that. You can literally unmute and go, hey, Gresham, say whatever you want to say. Or if you want to put it in the chat and one of the moderators will interrupt and say, hey, we got a question in there. but let's be just super open and talk about this. It's going to be way more effective because this is we'll talk about some of the statistics I've seen and what I've seen in this. It's a big deal, and it's affecting a lot of people in a lot of different ways, this burnout, and really not just in law enforcement, but in general. So my ground rules are there is no ground rules. You jump in whenever you want. You're not going to throw me off or anything like that. I want that. So kind of what the objectives, really what I want you guys to leave here today. I'm really hoping to spark a movement where people are taking this serious and understanding how it interacts with other mental wellness issues. And I'll talk about that on situations I've had. I'll give you some examples of burnout and the varying degrees of it and how it affects an agency and things like that. So I kind of want you to understand burnout. Moral injury is something that we're seeing that's fairly new to the vernacular of law enforcement. Institutional betrayal, we're not going to get super deep into that, but that's a real thing. Want to give you some early warning signs to recognize, some practical prevention and coping strategies, leadership strategies. I'm sure we have other people of rank on there. I know we have Captain Jenkins on there from Oklahoma, and he's always looking at how can I take care of my people? You know, what can we do better? And that's what we want. We want those kind of leaders. And how we support personnel and team resiliency. And we'll talk a little bit about how it all works with a peer support team, critical incident stress management team, and moving forward on that. But that's the objectives. Hopefully by the end, you have some of that and we can have some more discussion on everything. But again, anytime, ask questions. Here's something I did want to start off, though. We kind of, for years in wellness, it was all about resilience. We got to get people resilient. We need to build resilience. We got to train for resilience. And we do, but you know, resilience is kind of what we do to navigate tough times. But really, resilience is just bringing us back to the place we were at, if that makes sense. Kind of bouncing back to point A, all right? Anti-fragility is beyond that. We want to be able to not just go back to that place, but we actually want to get past that and be better. All right. That's part of, you know, anti-fragility is taking those most difficult things that happen to us and growing from that and actually being better. And I'll talk about this probably again at the end, but here's something that definitely wasn't in Coy Jenkins Academy, wasn't in my academy. We didn't get anything on how to take care of ourselves in the academy, but we know now how to do that. We know it. There's no reason that somebody can't leave this job better than when they started. And that's the goal of everything that Guide is about and that I'm about, is helping people leave this job better, because all of us on here have seen too many people leave the job broken, wind up committing suicide, things like that. And it doesn't have to be that way. So kind of as we're going through this, and when you leave today, kind of think about anti-fragility and look up that a little bit. But that's taking those worst things and growing from it and figuring out how can I be better than when I started. So I do want to start. I also want to throw this in, and I'm going to ask everybody, not in this moment right now, but I want you to figure out what's your why. Why did you become a first responder? And I'm going to challenge you that we get off this at some point today to think about that and write that down. All right. This is an exercise that I instituted at the State Police Academy. I've taught it in seminars. We need to start getting our recruits, trainees, whatever you call them, new hires, thinking about this and challenging them with this. And we need to also train our existing people is, what is your why? And why do we want to do that? Your why provides stability and direction in chaos. All right. Does that make sense? Your why is your deep-seated motivator, kind of guiding your life choices. Continually self-questioning that helps uncover your personal why. All right. And aligning actions with your why enhances fulfillment and happiness. But your why can change through life. But here's why we want to do this. If you know your why, you can deal with the how. And part of, and we'll talk about this here in a little bit, is when people have come to see me, and I'll share how many people have talked to me about burnout and the numbers I'm seeing and statistically what that is. but that's where they get to. They're like, I don't know how I'm going to stay here 5 more years. I don't know how I'm going to stay here 10 years. I don't know how I'm going to stay here 1 year, whatever that is. But if you know your why, it gives you a leg up on dealing with your how. How am I going to do this? How can I get to that point? And it can change. I tell, rookies, trainees, your why right now when you're in the academy is probably going to be different than when you're 3 years from retiring, right? Sometimes when you're at 3 years, sometimes it's like, well, my why is I want to make it to retirement. And there's nothing wrong with that. But we got to know, what is our motivation? What is our why? Again, it can help us through that how. So this is interesting. Burnout rarely happens all at once. It usually develops gradually as chronic workplace stress goes unmanaged. So what have I seen in burnout? I can tell you in a 12-month period, when I was a wellness coordinator, I saw over 100 people, mostly sworn, some civilian, for burnout. Here's what I learned through all that is there's different stages of it. There's different degrees of it, okay? There are people that come to you and they're like, well, I'm not really enjoying the job anymore. I don't know what I want to do, etc., like that. And then you have people that come to you that are, I can't do this another day. I can't stand to put the uniform on. I can't do that. And we have to be ready when those things come to, how are we going to handle that? What are we going to do? I've had some that are so bad that I'm immediately referring them to a mental health professional. I've sent many to Nicole. I've had them so bad that they go into inpatient treatment because they start talking about co-issues with that. Alcohol use. I've had them where they have issues with suicidal ideation and things like that. And we can talk about some of that here in a little bit. But burnout is this huge spectrum that makes it kind of complicated when somebody comes up, and sometimes they don't even know what they have. They don't know what it's labeled. They just come in and say, there's no way I can stay here another 10 years. And here's what's important for police leaders, EMS leaders, any first responders, any kind of leaders to understand. You've got to deal with this, because if I started seeing a trend of people that were 5 and 6 years on going, I can't stay. If agencies start losing 5 and 8 and 10-year employees at a high rate, we already have a high attrition rate. We know that. But if you start losing those people, there's going to be a huge problem. And one of the things that I've seen, and I'm sure you all too, is all the resources put on recruiting. All right. And when you compare to what are the resources put on retention, pretty big difference in there. And we have to start thinking differently on that. We have to start saying, what are we going to do to keep the people that we have? It costs a ton of money to recruit and train any employee in any business. In first responders, it's even higher because of the level of training. And so we have to start looking at that and taking a hard look at what is causing the burnout. And we'll talk about that here in a little bit, but it's a huge issue. I just read a post on WebMD that said employee engagement is at a 10-year low right now. All right. And then I've looked at a bunch of different studies, and kind of research suggests that roughly half, and in some larger agencies, 6 in 10 first responders. Did somebody have a question? I heard a noise. Sorry. That roughly half, and in some larger agencies, about 6 in 10 first responders are experiencing burnout. So think about that, 6 in 10. Right? It's a huge number. And again, my experience is there's other issues going on with the burnout. And it's domestic issues, it's alcohol issues, it's things like that. It's typically not just that. And it makes it more important to get them referred to a mental health professional. And we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But it's just important to know that this is a massive, massive problem that is impacting agencies. And when you look at agencies that have high turnover and those kind of things, we'll talk about in a little bit, what is the reason for that? What is contributing to this burnout? Any questions on that so far? All right. So what is burnout? Everybody feels burnout at some point. I have felt burnout before. All right. But it's emotional exhaustion. It's depersonalization or detachment, reduced sense of accomplishment. It's very common in chronic high stress work. One of the things we always talk about with any mental wellness issues is that detachment or isolation. When we start seeing people isolate and not talking to other people. And we'll give you some specific examples here in a little bit of what leaders can look for, what they need to look for. But that's kind of a dictionary definition broken down a little bit of what burnout is, but burnout looks different in everybody. And I think we need to be just aware of that and careful with that. So warning signs. And so these are more for like individuals to kind of look at on their own, but also supervisors. And we'll get to some more things with supervisors, but irritability, emotional numbing, chronic fatigue, sleep problems, decline in performance, feeling emotionally exhausted before the workday even begins. You see those people show up for squad meeting and they're just, here we go, man. You know, they're just exhausted before they've even started, feeling detached from work and not really caring about the outcomes that happen there, losing their sense of purpose. That's why figuring out what your why is so important. Overwhelmed by tasks that once seemed easily manageable is another one. Frequent illness. Anytime, we always tell supervisors, when you have somebody that's burning through all their sick time, burning through all their vacation time, that's a red flag. That means you probably need to take a look at that person and have a conversation with them. Changes in appetite, declining productivity, increased absenteeism or tardiness, we mentioned that, and increased reliability on alcohol, nicotine, gambling. That's another one that I've seen people that are burnt out, and so they go to gambling to try to get themselves, to feel better. And next thing you know, they're having extreme financial problems. Again, there's a lot of co-issues that surround, what we just call burnout. So what do leaders need to look for? Again, when you have high employee turnover, you can't just blame it all on, well, that's police agencies today, because there are police agencies, and I've talked to the chiefs at those places where they hardly have any turnover. All right. What is going on there? Increased sick leave. We talked about that. More workplace conflict, complaints from citizens, that the officer or whoever was rude or something like that. Lower employee engagement, declining customer service. They're not treating people very well, and increased safety incidents and errors all can be signs that there's some burnout or something going on. All those things that are going on always deserve some attention, and that's where peer support and those kind of things can come into play, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But what's the difference between burnout versus stress? Stress usually feels like I have too much to do. Burnout is more like nothing I do matters anymore. I've had people come to me that they're just like, yeah, I got nothing I do matters. Nobody cares here. I can't do this for another day. And here's something to think about that. When you get those people help, if they come back into the same situation, if it's a toxic work environment, we'll talk about that here in a little bit, but if it's things that are going on, it's going to be difficult for them to kind of not slide back into that. And so that's something to be aware of, that if we don't also work on what is the system like, what is the culture at the agency, we're going to continue to have those problems. But that's the big difference. Everybody has too much to do. Everybody feels stress. Burnout's just basically nothing I do matters. It just doesn't matter. I don't care. So how do we prevent it? Healthy routines and sleep hygiene. Sleep is so important, and it's one of those things that first responders always have issues with sleeping. When I teach classes and I'm talking about sleep and things like that, I'll usually say, how many people sleep 8 hours? And if there's 50 people, there'll be one hand. How many sleep 7? We get a few. 6 is usually a pretty high amount. 5, 4. I taught a class one time where I got down to 2 hours, and there was a guy that said he averaged 2 hours a night of sleep. Nothing good is going to come of that. And we now know there are certain things that we can do that can help with sleep and all that. Peer and supervisor support. Again, if you don't have a peer support team, start one, or contact regional teams. That's the whole concept we have in Virginia. We have multiple regional teams. If you have an agency that's like 5 people in there, that's going to be difficult probably to have a peer team. You can get some training or whatever, but maybe join or be part of a regional team so you have other people to do that. Supervisor support. All right. We need to train supervisors better. We'll talk about that here in a little bit on how to look for these things. And most importantly, how not to contribute to burnout, how not to be that supervisor that contributes it. Limiting overtime when possible. Look, most agencies have a shortage. I've had so many sworn people come to me and they're like, we're getting forced to do mandatory overtime and all that. And I'm burnt out. I can't do that anymore. Here's the kicker too. The new generation coming up, they're really not that interested in working overtime. And God love them, I think that's fine. People can lament how different generations are or anything like that. But this new generation coming up, I think they're probably going to be the first law enforcement generation that will probably end their careers better than when they got there, because they listen to these kind of things. They practice. When I've had to work with Gen Zs and I'll say, hey, I need you to, do some gratitude journaling, breathing practice. They do that. They don't question it. They know that it's going to help. And so I know agencies are having trouble getting them to, work overtime and all that kind of stuff, but we need to try to figure out some ways around that. And part of that is that retention, not losing people. If somebody is eligible to retire at 20, if you've got a great work environment where, they feel trusted and appreciated and those kind of things, they may stay 5 more years. They may stay 10 years, something like that. Using wellness and EAP resources, people have to know what's available. What can they do? And we'll talk about it in a little bit later, what you need to do to be ready if somebody comes to you to talk about these things. Building a daily wellness routine. I always talk about that. Have your daily routine of practices that you do to help you go through your life. I have 3 things that I do every single day, no matter what. Gratitude journaling, breathing practices, and meditation, no matter what, 16 years. That helps inoculate you towards those ups and downs. Developing a regulation tool. Again, what is that? Is it breathing practices? Whatever that is, those are the things that we have to start teaching in the academy and then teaching in service. And admittedly, the first responders that are my age or near that, they're going to be your most difficult sell. They just are. They're going to look at that stuff, and I've had them to my face go, well, that's woo stuff. That's not going to work. Okay, feel bad. I tell people, there's going to be pain. Suffering's optional. If you want to enjoy feeling crummy, that's certainly your right. But there's another way to do it. And a lot of times those people will come around when they start seeing, okay, this helps so-and-so. I want to be a part of that. Recovering from burnout, it's a process, all right? There are specific places where I've sent, I know Nicole has toured a facility in California. They do a 2-week reset where they actually focus specifically on burnout and recovering from that, but then they also kind of figure out what are the co-issues that are going on. Where did this come from that helped them get to that point and help them recover? And the people that are so far down the road on burnout that they have to go there, they come back from that. And I've had them tell me, man, I feel like when I started this job and I've got new boundaries, I've learned more about boundaries that I can put up so I don't get back to that point to where I'm extremely burnt out. I'm going to say no to some things. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. But it's a long process. It's centered on rest, boundary setting, and self-compassion to restore physical and emotional energy. People have to want to care about themselves. And for a lot of first responders, we have a tendency to put everybody else first, and we have to figure out, hey, man, how do I make sure I'm okay? What do I have to do for myself that I'm good? We got to disconnect from work stressors. We need 7 to 9 hours of sleep. We need to practice mindfulness and seeking professional support. I'm a big believer in people getting counseling. It's a process. It sometimes takes several months and requires reevaluating priorities. I can tell you that the people that I sent to the reset program, they all are doing well, but it was a little bit of a process getting back in, and it also depended on their supervisor, right? Some of the supervisors would say, well, now that you're back from your little vacation, that's crappy. Not how to handle that. And we have to, spend time guiding the supervisors on, hey, re-entry to work is really important. We need to support them. We need to understand that. That is going to be our biggest challenge in the first responder world, is to stop that kind of behavior of supervisors that don't support the wellness process. That's going to be an agency by agency challenge, and continues to occur. We talked about radical rest, taking breaks, considering time off. I know people that kind of have bragged like, hey man, I turned 4 weeks back in to the agency that I didn't take this year. No, you got to go out of town. You got to go. Coy goes to the beach. I'll guarantee you at least twice a year. He just went, and that's a good thing. You got to go do those things and take care of yourself. Set firm boundaries. It's okay to tell people, no, I can't do that. I need you to go do this. I'm sorry, I can't do that. All right. Rebuilding energy reserves. Have some kind of hobby, something that gets you out in nature's good, even taking a walk or something like that, but kind of avoid, draining activities, things that exhaust you too much. Seek social support. Every wellness issue that comes up, connection is important. All right. Connect with friends and family. Talk to your loved ones about what's going on. Consult a therapist or coach to process emotions, identify stressors, and develop coping mechanisms. And we'll talk about that a little bit more here in a minute. Reflect and reassess. Identify the root cause of burnout. Is it workload? Lack of control is a big one sometimes. And make those lifestyle or career changes. Sometimes, people just need to leave. I will tell you this. I always told everybody, hey, my job's not to make you stay or keep you here. I want you to be well. But here's what I would tell them. Quote, if you don't take care of this now, you can quit tomorrow and go work at Home Depot, and you're going to be the grumpy guy at Home Depot, the angry guy at Home Depot. This is going to follow you wherever you go. So do this for you. Do this for your family. Get well. All right. Figure out how to live your life without this burnout and this stress. So we need to avoid ignoring the symptoms. We all know people that just tap it down, keep going, continuing to work at the same capacity. And we've talked about isolating yourself. All right. And it's also, essential to be patient. Anybody I've ever sat down with, I've always told them, give yourself grace. It's okay that you're here, but you're going to be okay. You're going to have to do the work, and we're going to help guide you through that, and I'll be there with you. But just take a breath and give yourself grace that you're here. It's okay. You're not the first. You're not going to be the last. Don't make a big deal out of it. Let's just get you where you need to be. So let's talk a little bit about moral injury. Moral injury is psychological distress from violating personal values. So a lot of times it comes from high stakes decisions. We'll talk about that here in a second. And it can occur from witnessing or being part of injustice, seeing something that goes against your internal morals. And it strikes with deep emotional and identity impact. All right. Some of the signs of that are like guilt or shame. And let me go back one real quick. So some of the examples of this, just to give you that, is like inability to rescue an injured person. I've dealt with people that couldn't get into a burning car and people burn up in front of them. All right. And so that's moral injury. They just felt helpless to be able to help those people. And that causes a lot of issues for them. Seeing a use of force that goes wrong. All right. Maybe overuse of force. Seeing somebody shot. All right. There's a lot of those kind of things that can violate somebody's personal beliefs. And then it just causes this kind of dissonance in their head. And so those are kind of some of the examples of moral injury. Some of the signs of that, guilt or shame, again, anger withdrawal. We see that particularly withdrawal in almost everything. A loss of trust in self or others, and questioning meaning or purpose. All right. And when we think about guilt or shame, guilt is I did something bad. Shame is I'm bad. There's a big difference. All right. You can feel guilty about something. I wish that hadn't happened, but shame is where you're wearing it. And it is that I'm bad, I'm a bad person. That's going to require some intervention in there with a mental health professional. How do we prevent moral injury? Debriefs are important. Again, have a peer support team, have a CISM team with critical incident stress management, have team debriefs after difficult calls, have mental health professionals that you can call upon to help you with those things, ethical decision-making support, open non-judgmental peer spaces, all right, and no punitive response to emotional strain. That's real big. People have to be able to reach out and say, I need help, and not have any kind of repercussion that occurs from anywhere in their agency, all right? We're getting better at that, but we still have a way to go with all that. Any questions on moral injury? Recovering from it? Did I hear somebody, or is that just recovering from that? It involves a process of restoring one's sense of integrity, self-compassion, and meaning. A lot of times those people beat themselves up really, really tough, and they're very hard on them, right? It involves community support, therapy, and purposeful action to address deep-seated guilt or shame. Some strategies on that include trauma-focused therapies like cognitive processing therapy, EMDR, and we'll talk here at the end if anybody has any questions on the different therapies, all that. Finding new meaning and community engagement, getting involved in the world around them.
Hey, Mike.
Yes.
What's something that you can say to somebody that has just been beat down and they're in that moral injury, and you can tell that's what it is? What is something that you can just say to them, or kind of just be there supportive wise?
Man, that's a great question, Tom. And I'll tell you, one of the things, and we're even talking about doing a whole webinar on this down the road, is being able to normalize that and just say, look, I totally understand. And that's normal to feel that way. It's okay. And really what I find works is just look them in the eye and even lower your voice a little bit and go, you're going to be okay. We got you. We're going to get you to where you need to be. And you need to be good to yourself. This happened. We're going to work with you on that. You're going to be okay. A lot of times people just want that little bit of glimmer of hope that they're going to be okay. And then the importance of that is following up. But in that moment is just let them know they're not alone. Tell them I've helped other people with this. I'm a big believer in courageous vulnerability. All right. When you tell somebody, hey, I've been there. I know what that's like. I know what it's like to have those thoughts. And I'm here. I survived that, and you will too. You're going to be okay. Will you trust me and let me help you? That's kind of how I've handled that, if that makes sense. So key approaches to recovery, obviously, evidence-based therapies, and community and social support. We talked about that. Self-compassion and forgiveness, finding new purpose, handling that pain into helping others. Again, that's that anti-fragility. That's another thing that you can tell those people here. I'm going to tell you, can't tell you if it's going to be a month or 6 months, but you're going to be better from that incident. We're going to build from that. And this could be a turning point of your life, is to be better from that, right? Mindfulness and spiritual practices, meditation, mindfulness, those kind of things also help those intrusive thoughts. One of the things sometimes in the moment when somebody's feeling that way is you can teach them some breathing technique. 4-7-8, is another one. In slow 4, hold 7, out slow 8. That's highly effective. Teach them some of that. When they start beating themselves up, do something to get that needle in a new groove. Do some breathing practices, petting a dog, do anything to get your mind out of that self-flagellation where you are just beating yourself up. We first responders are Jedi good at beating ourselves up, all right? And we've got to be better at that and put that awareness on that.
And Mike, going back
yes.
to kind of Sean's question, when we're talking about moral injury, it's a lot of the spiritual practices and their beliefs is what's causing this. So it's really helping them, you know, they came into this job, and the way that I kind of do it in debriefs, Norfolk especially, we always after everybody goes through and they're like, well, this should have happened, or what if I would have done this? What if I would have gotten there a few minutes early? Those kind of things. And we always end our debriefs with, you have to remember everything happened exactly how it was supposed to happen, because had you got there a little bit earlier, you may have been hurt more. So it's really kind of normalizing and helping people understand that, you know, if you do have that spiritual connection, everything is going to happen exactly how it's supposed to happen. And you just have to trust that and then go from there.
Thanks, Nicole. That's awesome. And that ties in with, you know, I'll always ask somebody, hey, you know, are you a religious person? Lean on that, use that. And if they're not, spirituality, you know, again, making meaning of that is kind of the last thing, almost exactly like what Nicole was just saying. Meaning making and narrative is developing a coherent, honest narrative about the experience. All right. It happened for a reason. And it happened. Again, you know, it doesn't do any good to go back and beat yourself up for something that's already happened, or worry about something that's going to happen down the road, right? That's just depression and anxiety waiting to happen. And that's another thing too, is kind of help them focus on staying in the present moment, which is always the best place to be. Thanks, Nicole. That was awesome. Again, coping strategies for that, breathing and grounding techniques we talked about, peer check-ins, exercise and sleep routines, and professional counseling when needed. So how do we build resilience? I always tell trainees when I'm teaching them is I'll say, look, if you're starting law enforcement career now, if you've got friends outside of the academy, keep those friends. Don't lose those friends. Don't make all your friends just cops. That's not going to be great. All right. Keep that identity of who you are outside of the job. Because here's the reality. When you quit, when you leave, you're probably not going to hear from anybody. That's just the reality of almost any job. All right. And so you got to take care of what you have outside of the job. Healthy relationships. All right. Purpose-driven service, continuous wellness habits. I think one of the most interesting things, people that I've coached and helped through, they're like, well, how long do I have to do these wellness practices? And I'm like, forever. I've done them 16 years now. Yeah, they're not going to hurt you forever. All right. Unless you just want to not feel good again, you got to continue those wellness habits. When do you seek help? Symptoms lasting more than 2 weeks. That's for anything. That's for, in my opinion, you know, post-traumatic issues and things like that. If it impacts your family, your job, feeling hope or isolated, use resources early. And so what does that mean? When to seek help? Who do you seek help from? If you don't have a relationship at your agency with a mental health professional, you need to do that. And you need to have a relationship with one that is culturally competent, meaning they work with first responders. It's critical that when somebody comes forward and they have an issue, that you don't go, okay, let me figure this out. You need to go, I'm going to suggest you call this person. And when you have that kind of relationship with them, I know in a pinch, when I would have somebody that was in crisis that maybe didn't need to go to inpatient treatment, but they needed somebody really soon, I could call Nicole, and she or one of her colleagues would see that person. You've got to have that relationship now. If you don't have that, start seeking that out. Start seeking those out. Know when the people need to get referred to help. Leadership. What does leadership need to do? Begin coaching on burnout prevention and anti-fragility in the academy and in service. Get everybody trained on that. All right. Understand it's not simply a resilience problem. It's not a generational thing. It's not because kids aren't strong enough or anything like that. Factors that contribute are excessive workload, lack of control or autonomy, unclear expectations, poor recognition, toxic leadership or workplace culture. Toxic leadership will trump almost everything else in a bad way. All right. Lack of psychological safety. They don't feel safe to share that they're having an issue. A mismatch between personal values and organizational practices. The best plan is going to have wellness resources, recovery time, and coaching with organizational changes that address that. All right. leadership has a substantial, massive impact on burnout. All right. Leaders need to recognize it's not just a resilience problem. I mentioned that. Studies show organizational and operational factors were the predominant factors in burnout. Okay. We've got to educate and improve frontline leaders. I'm a big proponent of whatever we're doing to train a lot of the people that are rising up has to radically change. All right. Consider testing for empathy. All right. There's ways to interview and bring, a mental health professional in on your processes. Like, how can we make sure that we're getting empathetic leaders? All right. That's something that's important. Hold toxic leaders accountable. Don't just ignore it because you don't want to admit that maybe it was a bad promotion. Hold them accountable. All right. Give employees voices where they can talk about these things. Make wellness culturally acceptable. Train supervisors in people leadership, not just operational stuff, not just to make sure that every I gets dotted and every T crossed, but people. How do they deal with people? All right. You cannot train your way out of an unhealthy organizational culture, no matter what you do. All right. Agency openings, turnover. One of the things that I've seen is where agencies just continue they're at 80% staffing, 70% staffing, 60%. There's a problem there. How they're addressing it now, some of them then are like, well, we were authorized 800, now we're authorized 700. We'll just load that. And so look, now we're only at 78%. All right. That's a Band-Aid that's just going to continue to have these issues. We have to move forward. We have to do better on these issues. Resources, and I'm open up for questions here in a little bit, so I don't go over, but peer support team, wellness unit, EAP counselors, national crisis services, all those kind of things. Get those relationships with your mental health professionals, train your people. Small steps prevent major breakdowns. All right. This is a significant issue. It is causing turnover. It's causing people to go into bad habits and things like that. It's a huge issue that is very addressable, but we just have to be open. I had a conversation with somebody the other day, and they said, why are we not treating wellness and putting the resources that we do like in firearms training? All right. Why are we not? I can't answer that question. It baffles me that we're not, but we have to do that. If we ever want to get through this and to do better, and we have to do better, we have to put those resources in there. Questions? I want to open it up now to any questions or comments. Make sure I didn't go over.
I have a question in the chat.
Yes, please.
You have a question in the chat.
Okay. Let me look at that.
Michael, I can read it to you if you'd like.
That'd be great. Thank you.
So this is from Anita. Can you share some best practices for supervisors in understanding and assisting members exhibiting burnout?
Yeah, that's a great question. I had a whole presentation that I've taught. I've taught it in the FBI's Frontline Supervisor School. Taught it at the state police with recently promoted sergeants and things like that. Because here's the reality is your sergeants will make or break you. All right, they're the ones that are experiencing the direct, supervision and relationship with your folks, or other ranks if it's fire service or EMS. But the equivalent of that type of rank is getting those people to understand. Number one, they have to be well. They have to take care of themselves. They have to identify whether they have issues. And number one, don't bring those issues forward. If you're having a crummy day, don't go in and take it out on somebody. But also, if you're dealing with post-traumatic stress or things like that, get that taken care of. Work on that, because again, you're going to be able to lead with empathy. That's the other part, is having empathy, understanding that you need to help these folks. And when you recognize those signs, is have a conversation with them. All right. If you see somebody's productivity going down, writing them up should not be the first thing that happens, which happens a lot in a lot of agencies. They're like, well, you're not making enough contacts. I'm giving you a write-up. Is have a conversation somewhere private. Maybe even meet them off site somewhere. Go have a meeting with them. Maybe it's not in front of everybody where everybody knows, oh, you got hauled into the sergeant's office or your supervisor's office. and be equipped, train people to be equipped to have that conversation. I had a whole about 45-minute block that I would teach on having a tough conversation. Do you really need to have the conversation? Are you calling in a subordinate just because I call it the Cartner syndrome, they didn't respect your authority and you're mad, right, from South Park, and you want to take it out on them? You really need to have the conversation. Make sure you're doing it for the right reasons, and then just, talk to them. But ahead of that, know your people. Know your people. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be best friends with everybody, but know something about them. Are they into dogs? Do they like public praise? Who are they in a relationship with? Get to know your people. We kind of have this space here. What I've worked with people that are having in crisis, and they're like, my supervisor doesn't know a thing about me. They don't know, about my dog. They don't know if I'm married. They don't know what my hobbies are, and so get to know people. That kind of start from that point, and then when you see those signs, have that conversation early. Does that make sense? Does that kind of answer the question? But it's communication. Yes,
Michael, the same earlier from Anita had a similar a related question. Would you be able to share the slides from today's presentation? I'll say that we are recording today's presentation, and it will be made available through the Guide website if you want to view it after the fact. But Mike, I'll let you answer if the slides themselves will be available.
Yeah, I can send those. I don't have any problem with that. I think it's we're here to help people. That's the bottom line. That's why everybody on this call, that's what we do. All right. We're here to help people. So whatever we can do, I'm fine with that. Yeah, just reach out. There's my email, the QR code there. And I'll still open it up for questions, but scan that. That'll give you any feedback or comments. If you like the presentation, anything you should be different, we appreciate that feedback. What other questions are there? I want to make sure everybody gets answered what they need to do.
Hey, Michael, this is Patrick. Thanks so much for doing this. You did a great job, by the way.
Thank you.
It was great seeing you do your thing. And hey, you know what? I'm curious. Obviously, we're here at the Guide app. We're trying to help make this easier for people, right? Get more people to be able to connect to resources, whether they're inside or outside the department. Give people the tools and education and social connections that feel safe and allow them to work on these issues. How do you see the Guide app fit into this solution? Where do you see us slot in, and how can we help agencies to help their people?
And you're opening it up to the group, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm asking that question to you, Michael.
Oh, how do we see that? Okay. So here's what specifically what I believe. We can't just have one, you can't just have a peer support team. You can't just have an EAP. You have to have a variety of tools. All right. And so I love the aspect of the app, and what Guide is doing is you can put in somebody's hands something that's 24/7, 365 to be able to look at, to be able to reach out, to be able to learn those things, because there is a certain percentage of folks that are not going to reach out to somebody and they need help. And so it helps with that, but it also helps with the people that want to learn, that want to be better. And so I think it is a tool in the toolbox that goes hand in hand with everything else that an agency is doing, and should be a part of it.
So can I add on to that? So I think there are a lot of apps out there, right? And a lot of different agencies are using different apps. I'm not sure I obviously know what you guys do because I'm friends with Mike, but maybe you guys could tell the people on here exactly what you're doing, what you're looking towards, and how your app is going to be different from all the others.
Yeah, I'd be happy to say a few things about that, and maybe Mike and other people want to talk about it. So our app is actually clinically validated. We've done a preclinical and clinical trial on our methodologies. And we showed definitively that people who use the app for several hours over the course of a month reduce depression and anxiety by 30%. So we're the only app that's gone through the steps of actually clinically validating the methods that we use, that they have an impact on the people that use them. The clinical trial was done exclusively with first responders and military veterans. Actually, a lot of the folks in the clinical trial were both. It also validated a lot of the assumptions that we make out there. 70% of the people that came into the trial had serious levels of depression and anxiety and other mental health conditions. And like I said, our methods, which were co-developed with the University of Pennsylvania, the leading department in the country doing research on first responders and veteran mental health, as well as the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. So we won an award from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, the only app available for first responders that can say that. They invested in us and also gave us access to 40 of their professionals that focus on veteran and first responder mental health. So all that collaboration research really contributed to what we do. But I think more specifically, what the app can do is it is completely anonymous way for people to get help. So while we've kind of pioneered a way for people to be able to have an individual account that can track all their progress, and they can keep record of what they're doing, but without capturing any of their identity. A lot of agencies will use it as a way to connect with the people in the agency. So when we go into agencies like Philadelphia, Philadelphia Police, Philadelphia Fire, where about close to 40% of all the people actually use the app, compared to like their EAP, which is at 1%. And the reason we see such a big discrepancy is that this is completely anonymous. To what Michael said, I think a lot of people are afraid that confidentiality isn't enough, that the barriers between confidentiality can get breached, that people can find out who took advantage of what and what services were offered with us. They can get access to a lot of the same resources, but never compromise their identity. So that's a big thing. But we love to work in concert, like Michael said, with agencies. So, for example, people can go through the app to connect with somebody like Michael in their department, have that connection, but never reveal their identity, which is going to dramatically increase the number of folks that take advantage of it. But we can offer all the training on resilience, the ability to, do meditations, to do gratitude journaling, we have sleep improvement tools to track mood, workouts, see data over time. As if the data starts to trend negative, we can start to create interventions for those people. We have over 2,000 lessons on different that they can take around resilience, forgiveness, all the topics that Michael had mentioned, as well as the ability to connect with one another. They can connect with thousands of other first responders across the country, as well as experts like Michael and people in their department. So I think in terms of a fully vetted, fully tested, and kind of a solution that can slot into a department, we offer a lot that is really just unique to us. And like Michael said, it's not a whole solution, right? It is part of something successful, but we definitely see that it's an important part of what's successful, especially with younger generations, that who are familiar with technology. They're just much more comfortable taking the first step using something like this. Anyway, that's what we see as some of the things that make us unique. And if anyone else on the team would like to add anything, that hopefully that answers your question. I don't know if I missed anything.
Yeah, I'm just going to chime in on that on the side of having an app. I think it's a good avenue for, like what you said, it doesn't fix everything, but it has, limitations. But I do like having, because there's a time where I'm at somewhere, I'm like, I don't know that resource right off the top of my head, but if I had, or you had that access to that app, you could just scroll right to it and just pull it up. So I like having where everything's all in one place. There's many a times where I come across and I don't have that resource at the tip of my tongue or on my, right on the scroll. So it's good having it all in one place, whether it's an app or a file or something like that. But I do like some sense of that where you have all these resources and avenues to go out and get additional help and what you need.
Yeah, a great point. Yeah, and that's something we do is we end up being a kind of centralized resource for everything that's available. I know for some of our bigger customers, we may have 100 different contacts in the app that people can connect with confidentially, and it's amazing how many people use that as their way to connect with chaplains, other mental health professionals, wellness officers, and other folks like that. Preferring the app over a real life connection to get started. Hopefully you build up to a real life connection, but sometimes that's the way people want to get started.
And I think that's going to continue to increase with the new generation coming up. That's how it is. That's reality. And there's never just one way to help. That's what I've learned. The story is never the same. I think it's, laughable when you're asked like, hey, we want you to come up with a policy and procedure on how exactly that you help somebody. It's like, no, you just can't. It's always different. And so people are going to, get to help in a variety of ways. And so we want to make sure you have every one of those open to get somebody help.
Hey guys, this is Coy from Oklahoma. I want to make a couple of comments. I thought the information that everybody's sharing is great. I appreciate the professional input. I want to make a suggestion that each of you do 3 things when you're talking with someone. I try to encourage people to not only take a vacation, but to place it on the calendar. A lot of people talk about taking a vacation and they go, yeah, I probably need to do that. Well, tell them, say, it doesn't work unless you write it on the calendar. And then you have to say no to everything else to make sure that vacation works. Another thing I think is real important for people, particularly those of us in this career that are getting older, that they find a new interest. Sometimes I hear a guy say, man, I'm not physically able to do something anymore, and it's really bothering me. And I think it's kind of time for me to lead a career. I challenge him to find a new interest. 2 years ago, and Mike knows this, I'm 72 years old this year, but 2 years ago I decided, you know what, I'm going to be a coach for Little League Baseball. And I caught a flight and I flew to Washington, D.C. and I went through special training, and I've had 2 teams now the last couple of years, and I've really, really enjoyed it. And the third thing that I would tell you to advise people is they need to develop an accountability team. And what I mean by an accountability team are their friends and their colleagues that they regularly meet with. For me, it's a Wednesday morning men's prayer group, and I'm there every Wednesday morning at 6 o'clock, ready to go. So those are my 3 things. And Mike, good on you for putting together this webinar today, buddy. Love you.
Love you, man. And that's awesome advice. And I know Coy has done that stuff, and that's how you navigate he's 50 years, I think, into a first responder career, and just keeps going, and I love that. And I actually learned that from him on the vacation deals. Like, no, get it on the books. You got something to look forward to. And that's one of the things when I've helped people that are, derailed or having issues, I'm like, hey man, what are you into? What do you do? And they're like, well, I like fishing. I go, awesome. When was the last time you fished? 7 years ago. And I'm like, okay, you're going to go fishing, Oh yeah. Giving yourself permission for that. Thanks for sharing that, Coy. That was awesome. Anything else? I can tell you, we're going to be doing some cool stuff at the Guide. I know I'm not free to say everything that we're doing, but like we're going to take this to a whole nother level. I'm really excited to be a part of. These are good folks. Obviously, you can tell great leadership, and the University of Penn thing was huge for me on coming here because, as most of you know, they've done a lot of work with the IACP in teaching classes and doing that kind of stuff, and so that kind of speaks for itself. What else? Any other questions, comments? Anybody?
As we close, it's 2:00, and as we're closing down, I'd just like to again personally thank Michael for his time preparing for today. Janice on our team, great job in organizing and gathering everyone together. And thank you, the audience, for taking time out of your busy schedules to support Michael, support our mission, and to support the men and women that you serve on a daily basis. If there is any interest in the guide topics that were shared, please reach out. We'd be happy to set up a private personal demo from the guide sales team. And we'd love to share with you what we're doing and how we're doing it and the benefits as Patrick shared with you. So be well, everyone. Thanks again for your time. Look forward to working with all of you again someday in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. I appreciate your time today. Be well.
Great. Good job, Michael. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time, Michael.
You bet. Thank you.